What's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the I Got a Story to Tell podcast. I am your host, Krystopher Scott, the co-founder of Billion or Bust. This episode of I Got a Story to Tell features Nicole Jackson. She is an Army veteran as well as a project manager, quality assurance analyst, all-around dope mother, so many different titles. I don't want to jack them up. And she will also go into more depth during this episode. Definitely appreciate everyone that's been listening to our past episodes with both Richie Pope and Don Dixon. Gonna go ahead and get into this episode now. Thank you for tuning in. What I do is I just have a conversation.
Yeah.
See, but I know a lot about you, so this is kind of dope.
Mm-hmm.
So I can ask you like multiple questions with it. I'm feeling the hair.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just straight up went on them like.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. What's up?
You've lived, you just started really living, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole laundry list of stuff. So if you had to tell somebody who you are in 30 seconds, what would you say?
I am a dope ass black woman. That's what I am. That's it.
Where'd you get it from?
My mama. I absolutely got it from her. My mom is like the quintessential female hero. Like, she is the heroine of my story, right? So she was a technologist, and it didn't come. I don't want to say it came naturally to her. Way before I was born, she had graduated as valedictorian, and she'd applied to every Ivy League school she could, and she got into them all. But she wanted to stay close to her family, so she went up to our RPI up in Troy, New York, as a biomedical engineer and researcher. And she got tired of being isolated. Was no other black people up there with her, so she dropped out. And she came back to East Orange, New Jersey, and she built a life with a family. But it wasn't until my dad died that she realized, like, okay, the working in banks and working for nonprofits and doing all that stuff, really, it couldn't feed us, right? And I think the impetus for her choosing technology was specifically because, the career, like, it was a booming career field, right? Like, she started right before, I think right in the middle of the .com boom, kind of like in the like early 90s, but before Y2K. So she knew something big was going to happen. So she got in there like right at the perfect time. And then also, my mom, she's been very vocal and very open about this. So I'm completely okay with sharing it. Has been HIV positive since I was a little kid. And so she was very afraid of not being able to leave us with something in case something happened to her.
Understood.
And technology was that way for her to try to even that playing field. And I watched her. I mean, she would go to school. She was dope. She would go to school, and all her friends would come over after school, and she would study. And I would watch her build out these databases, and she'd say, read this. And she would show me a little bit of code, and she would show me requirements. She was like, write this. And she would show me how to write requirements. And, I get everything that I am, my strength, my curiosity from her. So I had a great role model.
So your mom pretty much put you like on the path to where you are and towards the future, because she was preparing you for what you currently do. So go ahead and just let everybody know what you do currently. Sure. You do a lot.
Yeah. Depends on the day. I would say I manage the day-to-day operations for our entire development team. So that includes Android, iOS, and web. I manage all of the business analysis for every project that we do. So I do a full deep dive assessment into what the thing is to ensure that we're on the right path. I do very critical evaluation of any design that comes in. I want to understand how it's going to work, what the feasibility of it is, what the scalability of it is. I manage project managers. I manage the QA team. I, to an extent, manage UI and UX. So sometimes I'm HR. Depends on like what I need to do at the moment. So I take on a bunch of different roles. I pivot in and out of them very easily. It's pretty fluid. Recently, I've started taking on some more challenging roles in PMO, working with some other teams to kind of scale them and to build process in a company, right? I initially did that in my capacity in my job now. When I first came on, there was no real process, so I developed my own version of Agile using Scrum, and it's kind of a mix of what I've learned over the years working with my mom, and then kind of, elevating in roles, and I implemented that at Duet, and it's been extremely successful. So yeah, just depends on the day of the week.
So all of those things that you currently do, the fact that you're able to wear multiple hats, I got to go back to the military, especially being a military brat.
Yeah.
Would you say your service in the military kind of helped prepare you to even putting to where you're at? Like, how much of an impact did it have on your life as a whole?
Oh, man. First of all, my path to the military was not linear, right? Like, I was a mess as a teenager. I was a mess. And I definitely needed that structure because I don't think I recognized that my argumentative personality, my assertiveness was a form of leadership. I just thought it was...
You were just being a Gemini.
Yeah, I was just being a Gemini. I was just, right, like I was just, naturally divergent, right? I didn't realize that it was just me challenging why we were doing something because it wasn't necessarily the most logical way to do it. And, man, the military definitely helped me learn how to manage teams, how to grow teams. I think more importantly...
You think more importantly?
Yeah, I think more importantly, it taught me how to accept different personalities and how to work with different personalities, which is hard. But that's one of the things I think I do best.
I definitely say you know how to, only because, I've worked. So at one point, Nicole was my manager, and I have watched her work with multiple different types of personalities. And she's able to bring those multiple different types of personalities together and just be like, hey, everybody, sit down, shut up. This is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And this will make sense. But you're able to kind of take away all the extraness that goes along with it to just kind of get down to the bottom line. And I know you're not going to automatically say it. So getting into the getting into like the whole tech space and coding and dev, you told me at one point you were part of the Google Scholars. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you kind of tell more about that, because I think a lot of people don't know all the different opportunities that exist in the tech space, and it's not just about coding.
Yeah.
You even mentioned, as far as the UX and the UI, as far as, the, project management, the product management, all those different things. So how did those different opportunities after, leaving the military and, those educational opportunities that you were given from that, how has that, kind of helped you get to where you're at?
I'll tell you that path. It was a weird one. I got my first job as a BA. I went in and it applied for an office manager job. And my boss at the time was like, nothing about your personality fits office manager. I don't even know why you're trying to be in an admin role. Why are you doing this? And I was like, I don't know, like, why not, right? Like, I can help manage people. That's what I do best. He was like, you're a different kind of manager. My interview ended up lasting for like 3 or 4 hours or something like that. And then we ended up having the second one. That was another 3 or 4 hours. He's like, I don't have this role here. He was like, I've needed one for a while, and it's really hard to come by somebody who is, but you're a business analyst, and I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to teach you everything that I know. He did exactly that. He was an Indian man. His name is Josh, and he's here in Columbus. He's one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. And he threw everything at me the first day. So my first day at work, I went in at 8. I remember that distinctly. I did not leave until about 5 p.m. the next day because his VP came in and said, hey, I have an RFP, which is a request for proposal that I need somebody to respond to. Oh, look, you have a BA. Hey, we're going to order some pizza. We're going to have some food. We're going to sit here all night to get this out because I got 48 hours to get this thing out. I learned in one day, my first day at work as a BA, how to write an RFP, how to properly respond to one. And then I want to say like 6 weeks later, she called me personally and said, hey, I want to thank you for your efforts on that RFP. By the way, I won it. And I was like, what? And she's like, you are a hell of a writer. I won it. And I said, what? And I started writing all his RFPs after that. And we won state after state after state. We won federal grants. We were knocking them down in prescription drug monitoring. It was super dope. And he taught me how to write requirements. He threw me with development teams with absolutely like no exposure. I just had what I knew as a kid. And he said, sink or swim. And I came out backstroking. I was like, all right, well, I'm in here, so I'm going to just do it. That opening led me into a deeper understanding of how things works and all the different roles that people need to play. And people were very open to show me. Like most of the time, if someone, like if you're curious enough, you just go to them and say, hey, what do you do for a living? Like, what do you do? They're like, this is what I do. People want to show you what they do for a living.
For sure.
Understanding how all those things fit together was a first part of it. The second part was understanding all the parts that I was good at and the parts that I wasn't. Some parts that I can just manage and lead. Some parts I need to take a deeper dive into to own. All those transitions through being a BA to being a release manager to being a product manager to being a project manager. Let me see. I don't know. What else have I done? Data modeling. I ended up getting into enterprise data modeling. I ended up getting into some crazy stuff just from digging and researching on my own. I became system administrators for like systems like Jira and so on and so forth. I teach myself all that stuff. But it was the curiosity that led there and the ability to step outside of what I was comfortable in and learn something else. When I found out that I won a scholarship with Google, they sent me out to, that was dope, by the way. I suggest anybody, if you're interested, hit me up on LinkedIn. Like, how do I apply to this thing? I will help you through the application process. That was a life-changing experience for me. I went out to Houston. I was around 50,000 other women in technology from all over the world. And that was a very transformational part of my professional career because I had never been around that many women in technology. I didn't even know we existed in those numbers because I had never had a female manager. Like, I think I had one, and she was great because she taught me how to manage strengths, right? And like forget about weaknesses. But she was very hands off. She was still an amazing woman. That's the only female manager I'd ever had. I'd only been managed by men. And so to be around so many women, like from Google and Facebook and Twitter and the Guinness Book of World Records and biomedical engineers and literally rocket scientists, like literally I was around rocket scientists and I was like, these conversations are getting crazy. That for me was a transformational thing. And I think as a result, I try to mold as many females in technology as humanly possible so that they know, like, this is a thing. We are out here. Also, we need you here so that you can be out here. Like, someone's looking at you, too.
For sure.
So, yeah.
That kind of segues into it. I mean, as far as being a black woman in tech, you know, the visibility aspect, you've been able to leverage opportunities that come to you. And one thing, you make your opportunities. You take the time to learn the skill, and even, you know, you told me that, like, hey, you need to take the time to learn this, and this, because it's going to help you get further. And I've been learning some things. So also, not only just being a black woman in tech, you're also very vocal as far as being a black gay woman in tech.
Yes, I am.
So as far as being in very male-dominated industries, you know, how has that kind of affected, you know, or has it affected how you move or even, you know, how you present yourself in different spaces?
I used to be apologetic about being right. Let me start there. When I was the younger version of Nicole, I used to say, oh, hey, guys, you know, I think, or I was thinking or wondering, trying to just push an idea on someone so that I didn't offend them, right? I don't do that anymore because I'm an expert in my space. I own that, and I don't apologize for that. That came from having things mansplained enough to me by people who didn't know as much as I did. I became very fed up with that and was like, you know, at some point, I am over you. I don't like to use that term, but you report directly to me because I am better at this than you are. And not because I'm a diversity hire, not because they just need to put a female in a position of power, not because I'm sitting here black and they just want some visibility and management, but because I actually am all of those things, and also I'm competent, and also you don't know as much as I do. I implore you to learn as much as I do. That would be great because I'm going to try to show you as much as I can, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, but that's because I don't want to be in this role. I'm trying to move up or move on or whatever. I have had, even in managing a lot of males, a lot of resistance, where there's normally this curve for about, I would say, the first 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how much I need to break through, where A, you're traumatized by the fact that you're reporting to a female. B, you're traumatized by the fact that you're reporting to a black female. And C, you find out that I'm gay. And that sometimes it's like too much, right? They're like, oh, because I'm openly gay.
Trifecta.
Yeah, they're like, what do you mean you have a wife? I'm like, yeah,
Yes, you do.
Yeah, but one of the most important things that I've learned is it is what it is. You're either going to get through it or you're not. I'm going to do my job. Your job is to do what I tell you to do, and so you can learn how to do it on your own, right? And then my job is to make sure that you're competent enough to make those decisions on your own. You can either learn from me and deal with it, or you can leave.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
So I feel you're one of the very fortunate people, knowing, having that parent that was actually following their dreams and going after it. And you saw that as an example. And I know even in, raising your children, you try to be that same example. Do you even see sometimes that some of the things that you were interested, they started taking interest in, how do you, guide that, like even getting into the mentorship for those people? Because, I know that your kids are in that high school age, because there's plenty of people that know that listen to the podcast, that have kids that are in that high school time frame. And, my man's made a unicorn. I don't care what you say. You just, just need to be challenged, because we live in a world where it's a high consumption rate, and these kids they need things to hold their attention. So what are some of the things that you...
So it's funny. My, both of our kids are very different. My son tends to be the more of a challenge. I'll say that. Our daughter is, I think, more free flowing. She's definitely more on the artistic side. I think that my son is just really coming to the terms that he's logical, just by the conversation that we have. He's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you just walked through a whole process there, sir. You'll figure that out. So here's the thing. I push our kids to be innovators. That's very important to me. I'm very tired of seeing young black kids, black people in general, consuming products all the time. I'm really tired of seeing young black people not being a part of the conversation of what we are going to make next. We are just trying, I feel like we are always vying for roles in companies that already exist, instead of being innovators and creating companies that don't, creating concepts and products that don't.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking to them, I'm like, I understand that you like this thing. How can you improve upon that app? Like, what could you make that's going to make that better? Yeah. As a result, I don't accept them being in roles of subservience. I don't accept that. I would tell any parent out there, these kids are inundated by technology all the time. They think differently than we do because they've had access to it for longer than we do. So even watching like a child play a video game, some of the cognitive processes that goes along with this understanding what to push and when and how are hurdles that if, you're in any of my age ranges, we had Nintendo, maybe Atari, right? We weren't clicking all these buttons. Kids click them, they click them now, and they're able to process more in a more simplified fashion because it becomes very natural to them. It's not, they're not thinking and doing, they're just doing. Yeah. And I had a really interesting conversation with Dr. Monique Umphrey at Tri-C. She's wonderful. She came to hang out in Columbus a couple weeks ago at Zora's house. And we talked about that in a program she did with kids with drones. And she's like, hey, have you ever watched some of these kids with these drones? Like, we had a whole training session at one point with these kids, and we had to cut a day out because we thought we had to train them on how to use the drone to begin with. They need that training.
Yeah, out the box, they probably just been able
they
to
didn't
sit
need
there
that.
and do it.
It came completely natural.
Yeah.
So the next question is, okay, now that we're past that threshold, what should they actually be creating then? Right? Like, we're still looking at things from our lens. Like, some of these kids need to really push these technologies to where their grandkids are going to need them.
For sure.
They need to be thinking in that direction, and that's how we need to be thinking. Not that they're just kids that we're buying things for. What can you build on top of this? What are you going to build next? What are you going to own? So that we don't have kids vying for jobs at, like, larger companies, but they're the people creating companies to support our community. That, I think, is the next goal, and at least what I'm telling my kids. So
You definitely said a lot, even working with a couple of companies I'm working kind of with a company. They're using technology to change literacy, especially between that the pre-K to about the third grade level, because those are crucial areas. But this podcast is about you. So what are a couple of things that you have coming up and kind of want people to be on the lookout for?
Yeah.
Soon to be doctor.
Yes. So that's a big thing. I'm in the process of doing my final assessment. I officially turned on my paperwork for my candidacy for a pretty major doctoral program out in Massachusetts. So I'm pretty excited about that. I anticipate having that fully processed out, and I will move on through that process. I'm really excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited about that. It's a big deal. Let me see. So I recently had I had an interview on a project that I was a part of with CBS out of Chicago today, actually. That was interesting. There will be more on that to come, but I've been a part of some really cool projects specifically for young Black girls and Black women.
Okay.
I'm going to continue mentoring. I actually have been mentoring a couple of my high school kids. We just took them out to Ohio's Google conference a couple weeks ago.
Oh, right on.
They sucked it up. Like, they loved it, right? It's the first major exposure to technology. I actually took some students out from Central State, too. So I'm definitely active in our community, making sure, like, hey, this is what it is. Like, this is where this is going. Be a part of the conversation now, make contacts, have ideas, and then push those ideas. Yeah, and I'm still, out here mentoring, kind of doing my thing. That's a major push for me. And I'm also really starting to collaborate a lot more with Dr. Umfrey at Tri-State. Okay. That's a really big deal. I'm actually collaborating with a whole bunch of Black technologists right now. We're coming up with some very interesting concepts, and so there'll definitely be some things in 2019 that are coming from that. But we are going to see how far we can push this whole product idea and see how many ideas we can generate amongst ourselves. So that's dope. That's gonna be a powerhouse thing.
I want to make sure that everybody has the information to follow you on LinkedIn. I know you said you're available for mentorship. I know you definitely are. You have no problem, giving help, advice, whatever you need. And I definitely appreciate you, taking time out to sit down and talk with the kid.
Anytime. Yeah, I mean, you definitely, you know how I feel. Like, you are, yes.
I'm trying. I'm trying to do a little something.
I'm extremely proud of you, and extremely proud to know you. So
I appreciate that.
Yep.